Hey guys, Tony here for TonyTechBytes, and this is the OnePlus 7T versus OnePlus 7 Pro camera comparison. So yesterday I went on a boat at nighttime with a bunch of my friends, and my friend Ken and I basically just got the 7T and 7 Pro and we compared the cameras. We took a bunch of low light photos, nightscape, ultra wide, selfie pictures, and a bunch of other stuff like that. And I'll just compare them throughout this video. So before we start, I'll just go over the specs since I just want to get that over with first. If you want to see a written version of this video, I'll have it linked below in the description. I basically just did a forum post comparing the cameras. So for the specs of the 7T, it has a 48 megapixel main camera with a relatively large aperture of f1.6, optical image stabilization, and electronic image stabilization. The 2x telephoto lens has 12 megapixels with an aperture of f2.2. As for the ultra-wide angle lens, the 7T packs a 16 megapixel f2.2 lens with a field of view of 117 degrees. The front camera sports an aperture of f2 and a megapixel count of 16, and there are also a couple new additions with the 7T, such as super macro mode, which allows you to get a lot closer with a smaller minimum focus distance, so you can just get like up close to your subject. The 7 Pro features really similar camera specs with a nearly identically configured main, front, and ultra-wide camera. However, its telephoto lens only packs 8 megapixels with an aperture of f2.4, and both the 7 Pro and 7T can record 4K at up to 60 frames per second. So the software version that the 7T is running is 10.0.5.HD65AA, Oxygen OS 10.0.1.GM21AA for the 7 Pro. And I know 10.0.6 is out for the 7T, but I actually haven't gotten the over-the-air update yet, and I didn't really have time to update it yesterday since I was in a rush to leave. Oh yeah, just built this brand new PC, time to turn it on. What the hell is this? Activate Windows? Oh, code TTB20 for 20% off? I'm gonna have to buy that right now. Alright, just got this code in the email, time to activate it. Click next. And it should work right over here. Windows 10 Home is activated with a digital license. If you ever need a Windows 10 activation key or a game code for a cheaper price, do check out Your CD Keys. They feature tons of games at a discounted price and Windows 10 codes, so you don't have to pay an overpriced fee to get rid of that pesky Windows 10 watermark. Remember to use code TTB20 for 20% off your next purchase. Huge thanks to Your CD Keys for sponsoring this segment and supporting a small YouTube channel. So before I show a couple of the camera samples, I just want to say right now that they are practically identical and you probably won't notice a huge difference between them. Nightscape might be a little bit better than 7T. Sometimes, like, some of the photos and videos are a little bit better than 7 Pro. And another thing I wanted to mention is that both of these phones, when you just take a macro shot without turning on super macro mode, like when you're really close to something, it's gonna look really blurry because the minimum focusing distance isn't that close. But when you turn on super macro mode on the 7T, you can see it really clearly because of the slightly newer hardware on the 7T. That won't really affect you if you don't really take that many macro shots, and I personally have never really needed to use a macro mode. But if you do take macro shots, then that's something to consider. now that you've gotten to see camera samples from both of these phones, I have to say that just what I said before, they look really similar. In most shots, they look identical with pretty good contrast, saturation, and sharpness. This was on a boat late at night. We were on the waves and it was shaky, windy, and our hands were freezing, so we were literally just shaking while we were taking these photos. So if they look blurry, then that's not really the camera's fault, it's probably our fault. Since the boat was shaking, we were shaking too. So that doesn't really help. Obviously, optical image stabilization does help. It's not gonna work wonders because that's just not possible. So I can't really say much else because there's a really marginal difference between them. In some cases, the 7T did have sharper results, and in other cases, the 7 Pro managed to get a sharper shot. So I think if you had to choose between the two, there isn't really much of a difference. But if you look at the macro shots, there's a huge difference because with the 7T, you have the super macro mode, which allows you to get super close. And yet again, if you were to just use the stock cameras, they would have the same images pretty much. But if you were to use super macro mode with the 7T, it would look different because it allows it to have a shorter minimum focusing distance. So I really wish I could just say more about this and analyze every pixel, but unfortunately there isn't much to say. A lot of this can be due to a bunch of errors like shakiness from the boat and our hands were freezing and just a bunch of other factors like that. I have to say that they did a pretty good job for low light photos. Nightscape wasn't terrible. It's definitely better than a bunch of older phones that just have grainy images. So this really wasn't bad. If you have to choose between the 7T and 7 Pro in terms of the camera, you really can't go wrong with either. And I think ultimately the choice would have to go upon macro capabilities. If you really need to take macro shots, then I would just get the 7T. But if you don't really care about that, then either are fine. I wouldn't really feel that the 7 Pro is inferior to the 7T because it isn't really lacking anything besides the super macro mode, in which I'm pretty sure most people don't need to use regularly. So the decision probably lies upon the screen resolution and battery life, processor, and a couple other features. So thank you so much for watching this camera comparison of the 7T versus 7 Pro. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing these pictures and videos that I shot on both of these phones. Please leave a like and subscribe to support my channel because I spent a lot of money on the boat tickets. And if you'd like to pick up a case or the 7T or 7 Pro, I have them linked in the description down below for your convenience. They are affiliate links, so I do earn a tiny bit of commission from them, but it doesn't come at an additional cost to you.